So I've said it a few times or hinted towards it that at some point would talk a little bit about bank foreclosed properties, which we refer to as REO properties. R as in Richard, E as in Edward, O as in Oscar, not Oreo like the Trump first administration's director of housing thought it was called. That means is real estate owned. So people that don't understand what that is, we just say foreclosure. And that's a property that the bank actually owns. They got back their property and now they're putting it back on the market to be sold. I have a, a few friends that are REO agents, and they don't play around. They are in a situation where they are in their office all day. They're typically, many times, their home office or their office. They're not the people that are running people around with their children in the back of the car and showing property there and going to, Susie McGinnis's house to have drinks and find out Susie and Tom are getting a divorce and they're listing their house. The properties they list and the people that they work with are the people they work with are called asset managers. And this is somebody who's like sitting in a cube, probably in their mid 20s to 30s over at, XYZ company bank or asset management company. The asset management companies manage bank assets. Some of the banks don't manage them themselves. They'll have a company do that. And that means they put them on the market and they sell them through that asset management company. The person that is making the decision about your offer, like I started to say, is like 20 something, 30 something. They're sitting at that cube at that desk, and they've got a couple of different screens up, and they've got a matrix that says this house at 123 Oneida Ave is listed and worth this much money. And then when those offers come in, there's only so much that they're going to move on those offers. You might now get a chance to go back and forth a time or two with these asset managers in your offer, but that that's only because of where the market is right now. The last number of years, we were seeing since about 2008, and we still really are, um, when the property is listed at that price, the property is likely to sell at 3 to 5% under the list price. That doesn't mean that if that property's been sitting on the market for a month or two, they won't make a slash at that price. Many times, about a $5,000 reduction a month once you start getting over $100,000 in these properties. They're great deals. You can get a foreclosure property still, throw some money at it, and put it back out on the market as a flip, and do well on that. Make some money on that property. Um, what one needs to understand going into this is that many times, because you can make some money on a flip on those properties, it's multiple offers. So you have to be able to come in and get the job done with a good solid offer. And then ultimately that REO agent that typically does not do a lot of speaking to other agents on the phone is going to call for highest and best. With highest and best, there's no escalation clauses. It's Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. You need to bring your highest and best offer. Many times people forget that highest is one term, best is another. So you could say, hey, this thing's been on the market forever and we're going to make this offer and we're going to give them asking price, but I need 90 days to close. That's not best. These banks typically want a 30-day close. Now, if there's a title issue, maybe they'll hold you off for a month or two, or it could be 3 or 4. And that's just something you have to be willing to deal with these properties. The banks are the ones that have the cards in their hands, and you have to understand that. So, the other thing about highest and best and multiple offers is if there are multiple offers, you can bet your bottom dollar that some or the majority, if not all, of these offering parties are foregoing an inspection because these properties are sold as is, as is, as is, as is. I hope I said as is because the banks sell the properties as is. And when you go through, if you're used to a regular real estate transaction and you're thinking, oh, yeah, well, I'll make the offer and then we'll do our inspection, they will give you in their contract, even HUD will say you have some time to do an inspection. But the real hard truth of it is certainly in a multiple offer situation, they're going to go with the offer, the best offer or offers that do not have an inspection outlined. And you're also only really going to be able to inspect the structural elements of the house 9 times out of 10, because, or let's say 70% of the time, because 90% of the time, I know the math isn't mathing there, right? But most times, the electric and the gas are not going to be on in these homes. Back in the good old days, like 2008, when I got into this foreclosure stuff as a buyer's agent and a listing agent for reals, they would allow inspections and they would allow you to turn, or many would allow inspections. They would allow you to turn the gas on, allow you to turn the heat on, gas is heat, and or electrical and or water to check out what was going on with that property. But now they mostly don't. And the reason behind that is because a lot of knuckleheads went out and they got their inspection going. And I think a lot of them just dropped out of the contracts when they find out that, yeah, a house that is winterized, if it's winterized in December because the field services company just finally got in there and it's already had water in the lines, there's going to be breaks in the pipes. Now, that's a real scary term to people, but usually it's like separations at elbows and joints and so forth. And it's mostly, you can fix those things. Sometimes they're broken toilets, though, water in the back froze or whatever. But the bank isn't there to play, grab ass with you around what you want fixed when they feel they've already priced this property to sell. So again, it's really important. You have to understand that as is as is as is. Now that doesn't mean that you don't get clear title. You'll, if you're working with a reputable agent, they're going to make good sure that you have clear title, and that's not part of the as is thing. 99% of these banks or asset management companies will give you, that's like your one um uh, uh the one thing that you can do to, if you wanted to get out, if it didn't have to clear title, you can blaze and you'll get your earnest money or your hand money back. But in terms of inspections, there's no like, oh, I'm negotiating. They don't realize that it needs a roof and it needs this and that and the other thing. They don't want to hear it. They'll go with another offer. Now, there are ways that when you're in a multiple offer situation, if you really want a home, the particular house that you're looking at, there are ways to get to the front of the list, so to speak, to be the one when they do that highest and best, to be the one that pulls off the win. And those you have to actually be a buyer of mine to make things work. So my understanding of how the bank REO, foreclosure, asset management managed and or bank owned properties works is a bit more in depth than, oh, Gino, who, is the cute blonde, or Tom, who's the muscly dude or whatever that has a great, face picture there on their headshot on their card. No, these people that may have been in the business for 5 minutes, 2 years, whatever, uh, they're used to selling regular houses from regular people, and they're not used to working in the REO industry and understanding how those other agents are that are REO agents. They're not available on Saturday for you, I'll tell you that, nor Sunday. They're 9 to 5ers, and they are serious about pushing paper back and forth with the bank. They're listing agents for the banks. And the more properties they list, the more properties they get. And they're not out there doing the buyer agency thing. So when you are working with someone like that, rather, when you are working with, the cutesy cutesies that are, trying to Instagram over contracts and stuff, they don't understand what the addenda that might come along with one of these properties looks like and what that means. There's just so much they don't get. So, hey, if you're going out for your $300,000, $500,000, whatever price point property in Pittsburgh that is in Shady Side and Squirrel Hill or whatever, super duper. Go for it, and go for it with, the cutesies and the big muscle guys, because that's up their alley. My alley is a little dirtier in terms of foreclosures because I've been around it. I work with a number of top producing professionals that do bank foreclosed homes. So I understand a little better the ins and outs of how to get an offer accepted with the banks and asset management companies. So if you are looking for a bank, REO, or foreclosure, or have any other questions, feel free to ask me. And the other thing is, these are 9 times out of 10 cash transactions. You are coming to the table with cash. You can't get an FHA loan. If it says bank owned foreclosure, and if your agent tells you that's what it is, that means you're coming with cash. You can't, and most times a conventional loan isn't going to work. And if it's multiple offers, you're going to be bidding against somebody else with cash. So that's something really important for you to know when you're trying to get into the I want to buy that property that happens to be bank owned. Real important to know that that's the case there. No inspections, cash transactions, sold as is, as is, as is. You need to follow the bank's rules, and the bank can frankly jerk you around. Oh, well, we need another month because we don't have the deed back. And you get to go, okay, the value in this property is what I'm considering to be worth waiting that long, and I'll extend the contract to continue on. But again, if you want real, true advice and direction, representation around buying a bank REO foreclosure property, give me a call. I pick up the phone and I speak to you about the specifics of what you're gonna need to know. And no, back taxes will be paid if you're using a closing company. And any asset management company that is out there saying, oh, you're going to take all the back taxes and we're not guaranteeing title. And any agent that says, yeah, it's a great deal, let's do it, is screwing you, putting you in a really bad position. Something else you should know is in Pennsylvania, the buyer has the right to choose the title company. Now, from time to time, you'll find that that doesn't go down that way. Part of one of the stipulations that the bank or asset management company has is that you need to use their title company. It's something that can be debated, kind of, I don't know, challenged when they say that, because legally in Pennsylvania, the buyer chooses title, period. But if you want that property and they're saying you need to use the seller's title company, then that's a chance you have to take. But we have a fantastic title company that I use here in Pittsburgh, where my friend, the closer, is on top of it. She's been doing these foreclosures forever for the top foreclosure agents in town, and she knows her stuff. And this is why I kind of talk about this a little bit, is that if you're getting title from a title company that's in Florida running title in Pennsylvania, here in Appalachia, where we have some different, I don't know, rules, traditions, whatever that go on, they don't know what they're doing many times, not to the extent that they need to. And when title comes, when there is a problem with title, you gotta search them down and make them do their thing. And if you're using a local title company that deals with bank foreclosed properties, it's much easier if there is a problem to get it handled. However, I feel terribly fortunate because my closer, Corey, is she's on it. She knows foreclosures, and that's real important. Sometimes your real estate agent with their company will say, well, you should use our real estate closing company, our title company, because we're asked to do that, whoever we're affiliated with. I don't follow those rules so well. I never did when I was at the company with the blue and white lettering, and I tend to go with who does the best job. So in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh anyway, I know one company that's fantastic at it, and my closer is above reproach. And we make sure that when title's getting cleared on these properties, that it's it's good. Like, you're not gonna have to come back and say 3 years later, "I'm trying to sell this place and they missed this lien," and all of that kind of baloney, because it's just not worth it. And, most of these, uh, asset management companies and or banks have dealt, with the company that I use anyway, and my closer regularly over decades, and they know when she picks up the phone, she knows what she's doing, and it's just a smoother transaction. So you're gonna get clear title. You're probably 9 times out of 10, you're gonna need to pay cash. You do not get an inspection if you want the property. I mean, you're entitled to the inspection, and I have to advise you as a licensed agent in Pennsylvania that you should get an inspection. But I also have to tell you the truth about how things work. And with these bank foreclosed REO properties, the chances of you winning that bid, saying you're going to do an inspection, are like that. So that's a little bit about the foreclosure stuff. We'll go into some more stuff about that at another time, maybe, but I'm not giving away all my knowledge base for big old muscle guy or Sally blonde hair to come in here and use some of the knowledge I have to benefit them because I have done that in the past. I'm one of these guys that feels like I always should share what I know. But there's some people that take advantage of that, and I'm not going to play that game. But there are tricks. There are tricks to winning the bids on foreclosures if you want them. So I'll see you next time.